Death row convict Premalal Jayasekara takes oath as a member of parliament. Samgijana Balawegya parliamentary group stages a walkout to oppose the move. Zaharan was a pawn. The true mastermind behind the April 21st attacks is a different force. An explosive revelation from Rauf Hakim at the Presidential Commission of Inquiry. Blaze on board the MT New Diamond continues to ravage. Burning supertanker currently positioned 28 nautical miles off the coast of Sri Lanka. Authority to grant lands belonging to the Department of Wildlife for Chena cultivations restored with district secretaries. Cabinet paper to be submitted tomorrow.
Good evening and welcome to Primetime News on TV1. On to your lead story now. Premalal Jayasekara, who is currently on death row after being convicted of murder, took oaths as a parliamentarian of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna today amid heavy resistance from the opposition.
Premalal Jayasekara and two others are currently on death row after being convicted of murder for shooting dead an individual in Kahavatta during the run-up to the 2015 presidential election. However, based on an application filed by Premalal Jayasekara, the Court of Appeal issued an interim order for him to attend parliamentary sittings. He was escorted to Parliament this morning by prison officials. Premalal Jayasekara took oaths as a Member of Parliament shortly after today's session commenced at 1 p.m. amid heavy resistance from the opposition. MPs representing the Samgijana Balawegya wore black shawls to Parliament today.
When we attempt to bring Sarath Fonseca to Parliament in 2010, GLP is speaking on behalf of the government said according to Article 89 of the Constitution, once a verdict is delivered by the High Court, the parliamentary seat of a person is invalidated. He said when one is convicted of murder, the Speaker does not bear the power to allow him to take oaths. This pundit in law is the one who claims that you do not hold that power.
There are three factors. First, the member should be imprisoned. Second, the term should be no less than 6 months. And if the person is serving a sentence of a minimum of 2 years. At such an instance, the seat of the individual will be invalidated. That is very clearly stated in Article 89D of the Constitution.
පැහැදිලිව සඳහන් වෙනවා ශ්‍රී ලංකා අනුර ව්‍යවස්ථාවේ 89D කියන වග.
ඒ දිවුරුන්දීම හමාර වුණාට පස්සේ රීති ප්‍රශ්න නගන්නට කිසිම අයිතියක් නැහැ. Only by a way of a substantive motion that another member presence can be questioned. That is the standing order. ඒ නිසා මම ඉල්ලා සිටිනවා.
Therefore, I request you not to allow them to disrespect Parliament in this manner. The Constitution should be understood by a Member of Parliament, not only an attorney at law. A person convicted of murder took oaths in front of you. The entire gang is the same. Do not make me speak. I was sentenced to a term in prison through an unfair ruling. The then president ordered for my arrest. He disregarded the morals of the army. The current prime minister and then president signed the sentence. I was imprisoned after being appointed an MP. Today we can see a person who is on death row taking oaths. The courts have only allowed for him to take oaths since he was elected by the people. Thereafter allowing him to attend parliamentary sittings and his right to vote will only be determined by you, the Speaker. The ball is in your court.
It is of the view of this court that the petitioner would be clothed with all the rights of an elected member of parliament. So that we will have to adhere to it.
Apart from the part you read out, it says,
Questionings of sitting and voting does not arise before us, and as the passage clearly indicates, it is the province of the Speaker to deal with the matter or any other competent body.
you are here to protect us. I am expressing my point. We do not have anything personal against Premalal Jayasekara. I will table this. Read out the 14th clause.
ලංකාවේ මරණ දඬුවම හිමි වෙච්ච මිනිසුන්ට සතිපතා ගෙදර යන්නත් අවස්ථාවක් දෙන්න. ඒ අධිකරණයේ විසින් දීපු
You all heard cases at the temple trees in the past and imprisoned people. You do not have a right to speak about the court.
They are attempting to sabotage the debate on the central bank which was scheduled to be held today. All of them are connected to the bond scam. MPs of the Samagi Jana Balawegaya staged a walkout from the parliamentary chambers alleging the swearing in of Premal Aljazeera was illegal.
The facts put forward by Field Marshal Sarath Fonseca and Harin Fernando based on privileges are being examined in court. Therefore, please remove it from the Hansard. This is a decision taken by the Court of Appeal.
Lakshman Kiriyalla too spoke about a matter that is being examined before court. I would like to request you to remove the statement from the Hansard. There is a rumour making the rounds on social media that Premal Aljazeera cannot exercise his privileges stated in the Parliamentary Privileges Act. I would like a clarification from you on that matter.
පනත ප්‍රකාරව තියෙන අයිතිවාසිකම් හිමි වෙන්නේ නැහැ කියලා නොයෙකුත් අද මාධ්‍ය තුල සහ සමාජ මාධ්‍ය තුල කතා කරනවා. ගරු කතානායකතුමාගෙන් ඒ සම්බන්ධයෙන් තීරණයක් මේ අවස්ථාවේ බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා.
For all purposes that he is being considered as a member of parliament.
Usually, once a person is sentenced to death, he is not released merely because he filed an application at the Court of Appeal. He is not even transferred to remand custody. He is incarcerated in the same cell. Only his apparel is changed. However, he is placed in the same cell. Why? Three things: the ability of him to commit suicide, the risk of escaping, and the threat of him committing another murder. Regardless of whatever is mentioned in the Constitution, there is a separate set of regulations which are followed by prisons on death row inmates.
Read Article 333 of the Criminal Procedure Code. It clearly states once an accused files an appeal at the Court of Appeal, until the appeal is examined, he will be treated as a remand prisoner and all his rights will be restored. Know the law before you speak.
රිමාන්ඩ් සරකරුවෙක් ලෙස සියලු අයිතිවාසිකම් ලැබෙනවා කියලා. ඒ නිසා නීතිය දැනගෙන කතා කරන්න.
වේගයෙන් කතා කරාට කලබලයෙන් මුර දුන්නට සත්‍ය සත්‍යමයි. ඒක විතරක් තේරුම් ගන්න.
An adjournment motion debate took place in the Parliament today on the annual report of the Central Bank, the performance report of the Ministry of Finance and the mid-year report on the fiscal status of the government. These are some of the views that were expressed while leader of the Janata Jana Balawegaya Anurukumara Disanayaka was speaking during the debate.
As the ruling faction, what did you do over the past 5 years? You had your committees at the temple trees. Now Ranil Wickremesinghe says that all of you left him. For 5 years you entered the temple trees from the front entrance. The bond scam occurred at the time you were in power. You do not speak about that.
I would like to see one speech made by the current chief government whip at the time he was an opposition MP. If I have the power to punish wrongdoers and criminals, most of you will not be here in Parliament. Had I possessed such power, I will not permit anyone to stand up and speak like that. We know who committed the bond scam, who robbed the EPF. We know all of it. You cannot cover your crimes by wearing white attire. Although your clothing is pure, your behavior is dirty. The person who made a phone call to obtain bribes in relation to a land deal was the person who stood up just now. The person who threatened the officials just stood up. The recognizable people, can you please stand up? I would like to see your faces. I don't remember the new faces as of yet. I will identify each and every old face here.
Your own son was moved from Mihin Air to Sri Lankan Airlines. The trade unions could not function. Don't act like you haven't done anything. I asked to launch an investigation into the case where my father was stabbed 14 times in front of me in 1989. Like that, thousands of people were murdered by the JVP. Banks were robbed and schools were torched in 88 and 89. Honorable Speaker, I ask you to look into those matters too.
Isn't it enough now? That is not a new voice. There is not a big difference in that voice. A female LTTE soldier was escorted from Polgahavela to Madivela. The Gregory Road was shown to her, the same road the former president used to travel on, and she was charged money for that. Gregory Road was shown as the road where you travel without security. The file relating to this at the Attorney General's department is missing now, but I have a file. There was a phone conversation that took place with Malaysia relating to that. In that you can hear a dog barking. A lot of people should not stand because I will reveal things. The Ministry of Justice is here. If you can, find the file and show me. There is no file at the Attorney General's department.
His party robbed 682 post offices, destroyed 20 vehicles that belong to the Department of Posts, destroyed 13 communication centers, torched 550 CTB buses, 15 bus depots were also torched.
The entire world knows that Greece is undergoing a massive economic crisis. In 2018, the European Union discussed to remove Greece from the Union. At a time like that, the former governor of the central bank buys bonds from Greece. Now what has happened? There is no money, no interest. That is what happened. I will reveal things if you stand up. I like it very much if these people with recognizable old faces stand up and speak. I can draw similar examples to the Bond Committee report.
A group including MPs of Samaga Jana Balavega and civil activists staged a Satyagraha opposing the 20th Amendment to the Constitution.
The Satyagraha, which was organized to protect the 19th Amendment to the Constitution, began after paying floral tribute to the statue of late Venerable Maduluave Sobhithero near the Parliamentary Complex. Representatives of the opposition, including opposition leader Sajith Premadasa, attended the event. Thereafter, the group pledged to oppose the 20th Amendment while safeguarding the 19th.
An amendment that was unanimously agreed upon is now being changed for the betterment of a single family. This is an attempt to destroy the country and violate the freedom of the people so someone could obtain more power. The current government is trying to hinder the democracy of the country and move forward to an authoritative era. This is why the 20th Amendment has been created. We will lead and strengthen the movement that will democratically defeat the 20th Amendment with the voice of the people.
The group then marched towards the Sri Lanka-Japan Friendship Bridge in Bathramulla and staged a protest.
Do you remember how late Venerable Maduluave Sobhithero voiced in favor of restricting unlimited powers of an executive president before the change of government in 2015? This executive president has unlimited powers. He can't be punished for any wrongdoing. He cannot be questioned before the law. The Constitution has no responsibility. The Constitutional Council has no responsibility. All appointments in the judiciary are made by the President. So we cannot hope for justice. We can't create a just and a law-abiding society without abolishing the executive presidency. Venerable Maduluave Sobhithero led the national movement for a just society in order to make the change the Thero anticipated. This is the stance of the movement today. The National Movement for a Just Society made a collective decision to oppose the attack against democracy in strengthening the 19th Amendment. We called the former speaker to lead this initiative and support us. He agreed and held discussions about the future course of action at our head office yesterday. We saw how Ali Sabri said that the commissions are of no use and that it will be pointless if the president can't work. We asked Ali Sabri, what is the use of parliament? Once the 20th Amendment is passed, what good will that do? The MPs and ministers do not have an opportunity to talk.
තාගන්න ඉඩ නැහැ. පුළුවන් නම් හිටපන් නැත්තම් ගෙදර ඵලයන් නැත්තම් සුදු ඇන් එකේ ඵලයන්. ඒක තමයි ඒගොල්ලෝ තියරිය.
That is their theory. This is the end of the judiciary and the parliament.
පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ අවසානය
අද පටන් අරන්
They obtained power by deceiving the Sinhalese, saying that they will be given everything while disregarding the others. This is the message they conveyed. Everyone will lose their rights when the constitution is amended.
කාගේ අයිතිත් නැති වෙන්නේ. හැම එකාගේම අයිතිය නැති වෙනවා.
On our policy statement, we stated that we are going to do away with the 19th Amendment. For the first time in Sri Lanka's history, the citizens of Sri Lanka have provided us with a two-thirds majority to do so. Formulating laws which are aimed at certain individuals was wrong then and it is wrong now. We should formulate laws which cater to the needs of the society as a whole. We should set in place laws which empower the state and its people. We feel formulating laws which are aimed at individuals should not be done at all. The people voted at 2 elections. Even when the president claimed that he would abolish the 19th Amendment, 6.9 million people voted for it. The 19th Amendment has its pros. However, we need to address the mandate of the people. Therefore, I believe that this amendment should be done.
අපිට දුන්න ජනමතය ගැන අපිට කතා කරන්න. ඒ නිසා මම හිතනවා මේ සංශෝධනය සිද්ධ විය යුතුයි.
ගෙවිඳු කුමාරතුංග මහත්මයා කියලා තියෙනවා.
Govinda Kumaratunga has said that he does not agree with certain provisions. We do not care if he agrees or not. What matters is if he is voicing his objection based on his disagreements. I saw how Dayasiri Jayasekara said he is against the president's immunity, but he has also said that he will not do anything to topple the government. We don't understand what he is saying. If he is against it, he should be against it. If not, he should speak in favor of it. Vimal Veeravansa does not agree with everything either, but he is not declaring it directly. He is making people like Gunadasa Amarasekara, Dr. Vasantha Bandara and Venerable Bengamu Nalakathero raise these objections. This is very crucial. This should be stopped from being passed then. Directly voice your objection and vote against this.
We will be back after this short commercial break.
I'm different to you. I'm doing a 100% Middlesex University Bridge degree with no compromise in Sri Lanka. How about you? Call 071115 1234 to enroll now.
Welcome back to the news. Sri Lanka Navy said the fire reignited aboard the empty New Diamond oil tanker has been brought under control to a considerable extent. Issuing a media release, the Navy said the operation to douse the fire using combustion chemicals and water is continuing. Meanwhile, a stain of diesel has been observed in close proximity to the oil tanker.
We believe with the water we use to douse the fire, the engine room of the tanker is filled with water. The rear end of the tanker has sunk slightly when compared to the other side. We have observed a diesel stain for about a nautical mile away from the ship. This is not the crude oil that ship has stored. The diesel was kept for everyday use and it was from the tanks that was placed in the lowermost layer of the ship. The aircraft belonging to the Indian Coast Guard at the Matale airport will arrive at the location to use a special chemical and remove the diesel stain to reduce the impact it has on the environment. Although the fire on board the New Diamond oil tanker was doused the day before yesterday, several internal parts of the ship caught on fire on numerous occasions. Issuing a release, Sri Lanka Navy said yesterday that the fire has reignited owing to inclement weather conditions. Accordingly, operations to douse the fire were carried out. The Sri Lanka Air Force said although the fire was brought under control by this morning, flames reignited aboard the ship from time to time. The fire-stricken ship is now lying 28 nautical miles off Sangaman Kanda Point. A meeting to discuss the current situation was convened at the Attorney General's Department earlier today.
During the meeting, urgent need to reach a decision to move the burnt empty New Diamond out of Sri Lankan waters, measures taken and immediate measures required to be taken by the Marine Environmental Protection Authority, the need to engage in coordinating efforts with all stakeholders in the event of an oil spill were discussed. The Marine Environmental Protection Authority had already written the Overseas Insurance Company on the 4th of September with regard to 3 steps which need to be taken with regard to the distressed empty New Diamond. The overseas insurance company is yet to respond or take necessary measures with regard to the letter dated on the 4th of September. The Attorney General had highlighted the need to reach a decision to move the distressed empty new diamond out of the Sri Lankan waters.
ගරු නීතිපතිතුමාගේ අවධානයට ලක් වුණා.
Meanwhile, a meeting to discuss the immediate measures to be taken at an event of an oil spill were discussed in Colombo today as well.
Appearing before the Presidential Commission of Inquiry probing the April 21st attacks, leader of the Sri Lanka Muslim Congress, Rauf Hakim, said that the National Tawhid Jamaat or its leader Zaharan Hashim did not have any direct link with the international terrorist group known as ISIS. Providing a statement before the Commission, Rauf Hakim said that there is an invisible force behind the April 21st attacks which operated to destabilize the country.
The leader of the Sri Lanka Muslim Congress, Rauf Hakim, arrived at the Presidential Commission of Inquiry probing the April 21st attacks at 6 last evening and provided a statement for nearly 3 hours. He said that using ISIS as a decoy for the April 21st attacks fulfilled the ambition of the true force behind the operation. Rauf Hakim also said that this invisible force had used Zaharan and the National Tawhid Jamaat as pawns to carry out the April 21st attack. He also stated that the attack was a one-off incident and there was no possibility of such an attack recurring. Following his statement, the commissioners questioned Hakim on the identity of the invisible force behind the attacks. Responding to that query, Hakim said he is ready to reveal the identity of the force in question only at a time and a place the media was not present. Meanwhile, parliamentarian Mujibur Rahman, following his statement to the police unit of the Presidential Commission of Inquiry, said that steps should be taken by the authorities to bring back Sara, one of the main suspects behind the April 21st attacks. Pulastini Rajendran, alias Sara, had been identified as the wife of Hastun, the bomber responsible for the Katuapitiya church explosion. Based on a testimony recorded from an official attached to the Criminal Investigation Department by the Commission, it was suspected that Sara had fled to India. Based on testimony recorded by the Commission on the 23rd of last month, it has been revealed that Sara had provided information to Indian intelligence.
Media reported that a woman named Sara was involved in this operation, had fled to India. If she can be brought back to the country, we will be able to find out the roots of this, who was behind this, and what was the motive behind this attack. The police officer who was suspected of aiding this woman to flee to India has been arrested by the police. Now what is left to do is to bring this woman back to the country and find out the origin of this.
The mother of Pulastini Rajendran, or Sara, appeared at the Kalmunai Magistrates Court for a case filed with regard to an explosion which took place at a house in Sayendamaradu in the Eastern Province just days after the April 21st attacks. The magistrate ordered that DNA samples be obtained from Sara's mother and called for another DNA report on Sara. Court ordered for Sara's mother to be escorted to Colombo to carry out these tests. Police spokesperson SSP Jalia Senaratna said that the test was carried out today in adherence with the order. Meanwhile, the government called on Rauf Hakim to expose the invisible force responsible for the 21st attack.
If Rauf Hakim has made such a statement, that invisible force has to be brought forward. According to the law, hiding evidence is an offence. So if he possesses the kind of information he claims to have, he can present it before the relevant commissions in a very transparent manner.
Minister C.B. Ratnayaka said a cabinet memorandum will be presented to the Cabinet of Ministers with a proposal to engage in Chena cultivations on wildlife and forest conservation lands with approval from the respective district secretary.
I will present a cabinet paper tomorrow to decide whether necessary action on the Chena cultivation in forest reserves can be taken on the recommendation of the district secretary. As the district secretaries are doing a good job, I hope to present a cabinet paper on this matter tomorrow.
The divisional and district secretaries were stripped of the power with regard to making decisions on lands, especially clearing off other state forests for cultivation purposes by two separate circulars. These two separate circulars brought an end to the arbitrary decision made by a single individual to release valuable plots of land, and lands were only released following a proper assessment made by the Special Review Committee. Before the 2020 general election, a proposal was put forward to the Cabinet of Ministers to vest the powers to transfer lands to district and divisional secretariats. The proposal was not put into action as a result of the strong objections raised on it. Concerns have been raised as to whether Minister C.B. Ratnayaka is attempting to move the same proposal to the Cabinet of Ministers.
All Ceylon Tamil Congress parliamentarian Gajendra Kumar Ponnambalam spoke about the difficulties faced by the people in the north due to unregulated microfinances.
When the Honourable Prime Minister was President then, and also Finance Minister, these microfinance institutions sprung up like mushrooms because those war-affected people for over 30 years were asked to compete with the rest of the country, with absolutely no effort to try and create a level playing field. On the contrary, the then government just turned a complete blind eye and allowed all sorts of institutions to spring up. And as a result, those people, if they were asked to compete with the rest of the country, were forced to take loans. This is what actually happened. They took loans to the extent where these scrupulous financial institutions bankrupted them. The rate of suicide in the northeast amongst the business community and traders actually increased after the war. You would expect that the situation economically would be dire during the war, but actually it became far worse after the war. If you look at the financial situation, particularly with regards to loans and the debt situation of the people of the northeast, the foundations for it was laid during this government or its previous predecessor.
According to Fitch Ratings, Sri Lanka's debt distress risk remain high.
Fitch Ratings predicts that government debt to GDP ratio to remain far above the B median of 66% at an elevated 94% of GDP at the end of this year, and to rise further to 96% in 2021 and 97% in 2022. Fitch's Asia Pacific Sovereign Credit Overview says Sri Lanka's large external debt repayments of about $3.8 billion are between June and December, including a $1 billion international sovereign bond in October. The overview further said Sri Lanka's external debt payments in 2021 to 2025 period is substantial, amounting to an average $4.3 billion per year. Fitch also expects the budget deficit to widen to 9.3% of GDP in 2020 and to stay elevated at about 8.5% of GDP in 2021 and 2022.
What are the living standards of those in rural Sri Lanka? What are their needs and wants? How are we to identify them? They can only truly be content with their lives if their sorrows and their difficulties are answered. Our Gammatha door-to-door teams toured many areas in Galle, Mathura, Anuradhapura and Mana today.
Although the Vannakulama Vaver in Galen Bindunu Vaver Anuradhapura is in an inutile state, officials still have not paid attention to it. By now, the Vaver is covered in foliage and sludge.
There are 200 acres of land which are sustained through this Vaver. All 200 acres are used during both Yala and Maha seasons.
The Vaver has not been cleaned in nearly 40 years. Gammatha teams touring Galle visited a number of houses in several villages situated in Nagoda today. The road spanning from Nagoda to Kandekatiya is currently in a decrepit state. Residents confided that if a 300-meter path of this road is constructed, life would be much easier for them.
I am 37 years old. This has been the same way since the days of my father. None of the politicians seem to be addressing these issues.
This is the Vijayaba Primary School situated in Gammatha, Nagoda. Residents utilize the school's ground to engage in various sports including volleyball. However, they do not even possess a proper volleyball net. Haystacks are also stored in this ground. This village suffers from yet another issue. Although the Ging River flows beside this village, area residents do not have access to clean drinking water. A water project has been commenced, but it has been abandoned halfway. The Gammadda team in Mana toured the areas of Tulli Kudi Irippu, Navakkuda, Vetriman Kudi Irippu, Kawayan Katti and Karayan Kudi Irippu. Most of these villages suffer from lack of roadways and clean drinking water.
In salutation of the 125th anniversary of St. Joseph's College, the school has decided to document its history and heritage. This was announced during a media briefing at St. Joseph's College, Colombo today.
Attorney at Law Neil Vijayaratne, an old boy of St. Joseph's College, has been commissioned to compile and write the 125-year history of the college and to be published on the occasion of 125th anniversary in 2021. St. Joseph's College, Colombo 10 will be celebrating 125 years of existence in March of 2021. The school was established in 1896 with the vision of educating Catholic boys with Catholic values in a Catholic atmosphere.
And that's a wrap of this edition of Primetime News for tonight. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Azra Hassan with our sign language interpreter, Brian D. Cruz. Take care and good night.